This episode of Birds and Bats is brought to you by SemoAutomall.com. Wanting to shop for cars, trucks, motorcycles, and more? Do so from the comfort of your home at SemoAutomall.com.
Hey, welcome to Birds and Bats with Fox Radio. Steven.
Sorry, it's been a long day.
FoxRadioNetwork.com. We're here, we're just here to talk about the Cardinals, how they've been doing and everything. We just want to invite you at the beginning to come in and talk to us about this with us. So really, with the Cardinals, this is the best start we've had in franchise history with what we've been doing lately. And what better time to talk about the franchise history with the Franchise 4. So, you want to go ahead and list them out?
Yeah, let me explain a little bit about the Franchise 4 real fast. MLB has had this campaign where they're going by each team and they're talking about the Franchise 4, which is the top 4 players for each team in Major League Baseball. And the fans are voting for the top 4 players for their favorite team and then the top 4 players in all of baseball. And they're going to announce the winners at this year's All-Star Game. So, since voting ended on May 8th, and the Cardinals are off to a historic start, we thought maybe we should talk a little bit about Cardinals history.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Well, we're going to go through the people who are actually on there listed right now. So we have Lou Brock, the left fielder, Dizzy Dean, a pitcher, Bob Gibson, also a pitcher, Rogers Hornsby, a second baseman, obviously Stan the Man, outfielder, Albert Pujols, first baseman.
We'll get back to that in a little bit. Red Schoendienst, second baseman and manager. And then Ozzie Smith, shortstop.
I can't say Red's last name to save my life, so. But those are actually the people that are on the voting ballot right now. So let's kind of go into a little bit about who we would pick and kind of come up with our own Birds and Bats Franchise 4.
Mm-hmm.
I think, you have to. You have to start with Stan the Man Musial. What else can you say?
Mm-hmm. If you don't think that Stan is on the top 4 players for the Cardinals, then you should probably just hand in your Cardinals fan card right now.
I'll take it. I have the shredder in the back. We'll just shove it through there.
He always has been the face of the franchise ever since he's played, and he was played all his entire career with the Cardinals, was an all-star almost every year he played, MVP, won World Series titles, and he just seemed like a really awesome guy too. I heard one time that one year he felt that he hadn't played well enough for the salary the Cardinals were going to give him, so he demanded that the Cardinals give him a pay cut. Can you imagine, baseball players today, how much money they're making and how, greedy they can be?
I can think of one person that wouldn't do that at all. But that's amazing. Can you, I really can't imagine that at all. Really, not even just baseball, but with any athlete. Mm-hmm. To look back at their performance and be like, you know what, that wasn't up to par, here's whatever, $20,000 back.
Yeah. And you don't see hardly any players except Derek Jeter and Chipper Jones playing for the same team their whole career nowadays anymore.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, the next person on the list, in my opinion, would have to be Bob Gibson. Mm-hmm. I am a huge Bob Gibson fan. My dad and I talked about this. He's, my inspiration for Cardinals baseball. He's raised me up right. But Bob Gibson, oh my gosh. Let me just start. As an athlete, this guy is sick, all right? He and a couple other pitchers were in the season of pitchers that made the leagues lower their pitching mound because they were throwing so hard and that they had such an advantage with being taller, that much taller, just by a few inches. Mm-hmm. That's sick.
Yeah.
How much more do you need after that?
When you're so good, they have to change the
They have to change the entire game. Well, okay, not the entire game, but I'm getting away with myself. But, they have to change the way how a pitching mound is made in order just so you don't kill people whenever you're throwing the ball. So that on top of it is the fact, this dude was intimidating. He walked out, game face on, the entire game. And, the thing about it is that, he was super intimidating. He was also very competitive. So whenever people came up to bat, people didn't want to come up to bat whenever he was pitching. People didn't even want to catch whenever he was pitching because he threw so hard. But the thing is that whenever he threw to batters, it would fly past their head.
Oh, yeah.
So afterwards you'd think, once the game's over, the game face would come off and he'd, pat him on the butt with his glove or something. Oh no, he stares them down as they're going back to their, back to their dugout. that would terrify me.
Yeah.
That would be enough for me not to want to be a part of any of that.
I think he would be almost too tough for baseball today. I think we've really softened up to where, if he played his style, everyone would be like, oh, you can't do that. You're too mean.
Yeah, well, I mean, you kind of have to have a face now. You have to be a part of the public. You have to be a part of the community.
Yeah.
Back then, he was just doing his thing, and that I can't have more respect for the man.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I mean, just little fun fact.
Yeah.
He actually was a Harlem Globetrotter the same time that he was a Cardinals baseball player, which makes sense because he's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever he was a kid, he played, mainly basketball and baseball, and he just got really, really good at both. Obviously, he ended up going with Cardinals and ended up playing until 75. But he was also only with the Cardinals that entire time.
Yeah, that's another
his
thing.
entire
That's
baseball career. So.
Yeah, I think another person that should be on the list, and I might be a little bit biased because this is the first person that I remember playing. I don't really remember watching him, but I remember hearing a lot about him, and that's Ozzie Smith.
Yep.
He retired and when I was like 5 years old, I think, so I don't remember him that well. But he was just so popular with the Cardinals, and he was another, like, one of those franchise players of his time. And, like, my parents, I always heard them talking about Ozzie Smith. I heard my siblings talking about Ozzie Smith. So I've just kind of been conditioned to root for Ozzie. And for good reason. He was a great shortstop, had 13 Gold Gloves, and he really kind of became a celebrity in his own way. He appeared on an episode of The Simpsons one time, so that's pretty cool.
I mean, that's really as celebrity as you can possibly get is appearing on The Simpsons. Yeah, and he actually came from the Padres to be with the Cardinals, and, he got to retire with the best, so, he went out with the Cardinals. The next one, in my opinion, I think would be Lou Brock.
Yep.
I mean, I feel like he played the same exact time that Bob Gibson did. So it's kind of easy for me to think of him as like a really good player, intimidating player, because that was just like the dream team.
Yeah.
He was a left fielder. He actually came from the Cubs and then became a Cardinals.
Yeah, so that's a good little jab at the Cubs.
And,
like, hey, thanks for our franchise
as
player.
if we don't do that enough.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that he actually only stayed with the Cubs for about 3 years and then came to be with us for, like 9. So, I mean, if that doesn't tell you anything. Also, fun fact, he's from Arkansas. And I didn't know that. But I thought that was kind of cool, considering we're like a spit throw away from Arkansas down here. And he was also a lefty. I mean, what else can you say about him?
Yeah, he held the stolen base record for the longest time. Part of World Championship clubs. Yeah, I think he's definitely on our fourth, like, Mount Rushmore of the Cardinals, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I mean, those are great. I think that's our top 4. So we have Stan the Man Musial, obviously.
Yep.
Bob Gibson, obviously.
Yeah.
Ozzie Smith and Lou Brock, I think, are our top 4.
Yeah. I think, like, the two staples that I think are kind of undebatable would be Stan Musial and Bob Gibson. The next two, I think, are a little more, pick at your own, your own preference, depending on what era you grew up watching.
Yeah.
But those two, to me, I think, should be on almost everyone's list.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, really, Stan, I feel like should just be everybody's number 1, even though I went on the site and voted for Bob as number 1. Anyway, but I mean, really, you could make an argument for Red, couldn't you?
Yeah, I think so. Just recently, the Cardinals had like a whole pregame ceremony dedicated to him because he's been in baseball for 70 years. And he played at the same time as Stan Musial, so he won World Series championships, and he also was a manager for the Cardinals when Bob Gibson and Lou Brock were playing. So if you take into account his managerial experience and just how much time he's been with the club, I think you could definitely make a case for Red Shindies being in there.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I completely agree. How about, of course, we have to go the opposite route and talk about a little bit of controversial. I mean, Albert Pujols being on there.
What do you think about Pujols? Being
I have
on
a lot
this
to
list,
say.
and how do you feel about him in general?
A lot to say, not enough time. I mean, I can understand him if we could just like forget the very ending of his career with the Cardinals baseball team and just think about like the time that he was in the Cardinals and everything. I can definitely understand it. I absolutely can. I mean, he was very, very active in the St. Louis community, let alone his amazing, skills as a ball player, and hits and home runs and everything. I mean, he was the shirt you bought in the store because you figured he was going to be with St. Louis forever.
Yeah.
And then he broke up with us, and
Yeah.
I'm just not over it yet.
That's really what it was a breakup.
It was a breakup. It was Albert Pujols looking at St. Louis saying, "It's not me, it's you."
Yeah.
And it broke my heart, obviously.
Mhm.
So, anyway, I think it's a
Yeah.
little controversial. I don't know if he should be on there or shouldn't be
Yeah.
on there, but...
I mean, we can't deny he was probably the best player last decade
For sure.
in baseball. And so that's really special. But it's just, it's still really fresh. The whole,
The wound.
yeah, the
Still
wound.
open.
Leaving us to LA for more money, I don't know. It's, I think 10 years, 15 years down the road, people will get over it. We'll retire Albert's number eventually. He'll be one of the red jacket Cardinals, and we'll kind of get over it. But he'll never be what he could have been.
I completely agree.
I think we were expecting another Stan Musial statue, only with Pujols outside the stadium.
Yeah,
but it's just not going to be like
feeding an orphan child or something.
Yeah.
Like, he was that good of a guy. He's still... Anyway, so...
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm very conflicted on this.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's going to wrap us up for the franchise four.
Yep.
And once again, I just kind of want to throw it out there. We have Stan the Man Musial, we have Bob Gibson as second, Ozzie Smith as third, and Lou Brock.
Yeah. If your franchise 4 is different, or if you'd like to provide input, you can get a hold of us at foxradionetwork.com/birdsandbats, on Twitter at Fox Radio Network, #birdsandbats.
Mhm.
And
I think
so
that'll be
join
good.
us here next week.
Happy Mother's Day!
Happy Mother's Day!
Yay!
You got a baby on the way.
Oh yeah.
Almost there.